Hey guys, you got Crave here with a review of the M8 from Xtrfy. Now, I've had this mouse since around the month it came out. I mean, I already had Pulsar's X2 and was content on keeping it in combo with Xtrfy's excellent M42 at the time. So I didn't really think much of picking it up, but I was just curious anyway. I've been using the M8 every now and then, and I'm saying that because my current combo is the Atlantis with my X2, which has been perfect. With that, the TLDR is that I really like the M8 or Mate, but the grip style that appears to be best for it, at least for me, doesn't work for the grip style that I have. But you might like the Mate, so let's see why I think this mouse is a pretty good one. Now, the M8 comes in some impressive but not too surprising specs. The sensor, switches, and feet are nothing you haven't seen in most mice these days. You've got the Pixart 3395 for its sensor, the Kale GM8 for the switches, and PTFE glides for its feet. It's also a light mouse at 55 grams, which is great as a lot of brands are really moving towards the lighter weight. I've mentioned in another mouse video that for as long as the tech isn't too far behind or isn't flawed, it's not going to hurt your performance in games whether you're a casual like me or a pro or even a sweat. Let's talk about the things that make it a bit different from the others. One thing about some mice being released nowadays, and even the more expensive ones, is that they can have a texture that's a bit too smooth. It's not like it gets in the way of gaming, at least the way I see it, but it's really just the feeling you get when you hold on to some of them. Now, the M8 or the Mate has a very nice textured feel to it. It will remind you of the PBT material similar to some good quality caps from keyboards. You get a good grip on the mouse basically, and it looks nice. Xtrfy also offers some pretty nice options in terms of colors for the surface. I was tempted to get the retro colorway, but I went with something, well, I would say safe to match the rest of my peripherals. All of them have the nicely engraved Xtrfy logo facing you. The underside is simple, but the colors will vary depending on the color style you pick. The underside also gives you a hint, as with other Xtrfy mice like the M42, that you won't need software to configure this device. You have your options to adjust your DPI, polling rate, and the debounce time. You also have your PTFE feet, which is standard fare for mice nowadays. In terms of configuration, now a number of brands already implement the no software path when configuring their devices. I personally go either way on this part. I mean, one side of me appreciates that I don't have to download anything in my rig to get things going, but I also understand the convenience of being just able to click and set things on my screen. As mentioned, the underside allows you to set things depending on which toggle you are in. There is a light indicator on the left side near the left click button to know which setting you are on. So for example, if you hold the side buttons along with the left click, you are able to see the battery level, which lets you know how much juice you have left. By the way, this is the only lighting you get on this device. For the full details on this, check the manual that comes with the M8, or you can get it from Xtrfy's website. One thing different about this Mate is that the USB-C port isn't on the front side as with most wireless mice. It sits on the right side closer to your wrist. Now, that doesn't really matter much to me, at least for me, as I normally have two wireless mice on my desk, so that if one goes slow, I just switch over to another while charging the other. Now, it is something to consider if you plan on using it while charging. One thing I have to mention is that the rubber cover that comes with it isn't really easy to get off, especially the first time. I wish Xtrfy did this differently, but there is the option to just simply leave it out, and it incidentally shaves off some weight. If you plan on getting this mouse, I suggest doing this so that you don't have to think about it. In terms of the construction, I mean, it's a small mouse, but very surprising. This Mate really just feels very, very sturdy. I was always impressed with the M42 from Xtrfy, and among the lighter mice I've owned, I always thought that their products, at least their products that I've tested, had the strongest feel. You don't get any creaking with the Mate when you hold it, or hear any rattle when you shake it. When combined with the texture feel I mentioned earlier, it feels like you're holding an 80-gram device or a mouse that's a bit more expensive. I'm really impressed with this part of this device. So it's time to do a quick sound test and see what the wheel and switches feel like. Well, it sounds okay, and the clicks produce a crisp feel. The wheel has distinct tactile bumps, but I do wish they were more subtle in terms of the sound they produced. The Glorious O- and the Ponage Ultra Custom have better sounds when scrolling up or down. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but it's just something I wish they did better. And lastly, I think this part makes the Mate or the M8 a bit more unique. It is a small mouse and a bit too small, which is why I veered towards the shapes of the Atlantis and the X2 Medium. Now, one thing that contributes to its small size is how thin it is from a width perspective. It doesn't have much in terms of the inward curve on the side like the X2 Medium or especially the Atlantis, but as you can see, there is a very noticeable difference, especially if you are very particular about that dimension of a mouse. Even if I were to, let's say, grab the X2 Mini, or well, the Mate is still smaller. I know it seems it shouldn't matter because the differences are so small and in that measurement scale, but it actually does when it comes to your comfort, especially when you game for extended periods. I think any mouse with proper tech and texture will be okay for maybe the first 15 minutes. Once you start getting past that, tolerances will vary, but you will either stick with the mouse you're using for a bit longer or discomfort starts to set in if it hasn't already by the moment you start holding the mouse. In addition, it's also pretty high in terms of the hump relative to other mice. So even if it is a smaller mouse, that part has a chance of being felt by your palm in the area closer to the underside of your knuckles. Lastly, the front part of the left and right buttons have a drop that seems like it's so close to the base of the device. So it's not very standard, that design. If you're the type to hold your mouse with your fingers with more of a hook shape, then this might be more to your liking because of how Xtrfy shaped this part. Even if you don't hold it like that and you prefer your fingers to be closer to a somewhat horizontal alignment, it doesn't matter as there appears to be no difference whether you click closer to the base of the mouse or nearer the top. The clicks activate with no noticeable impact on gameplay. And there you have it, Xtrfy's M8. Again, this won't be a mouse I'll be using for my 1-2 combo, but I've always liked Xtrfy's products and the M8 has been done so well that I thought there are people out there who might like this. It's a high quality product with a somewhat unique shape, but is reasonably priced. My guess is that this might be something for those who lean towards a fingertip grip style. Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you soon.